Welcome back to some new r/petty revenge stories, where people get small victories over those who wronged them. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Proving a Point. I started my last job in 2017. I was a part-time warehouse worker who, over a few years, was promoted to a transport management role. I and another colleague ran our department between us, only really reporting to our then line manager if we needed support with any part of our job or time off, etc. But other than that, he trusted us completely to run things. It wasn't without its stressful days, but we had a really good thing going. Then, in 2021, the business made some changes, moved our then line manager onto different departments, and got a new designated manager just to manage us two and our department. We were naturally quite bitter about it, but nevertheless thought we'd give him a chance. He turned out to be an absolute control freak and a bully, but he was strange. He could be very supportive one minute, then a manipulative bully the next. He loved poking fun at the fact I had a car accident last year. He loved solely targeting me for the bad jobs, and loved causing trouble between me and other colleagues. Then, in March this year, my girlfriend had problems during pregnancy. It was quite an awful, traumatic time, and I ended up having 3 weeks off work. When I returned, I had a mountain of work to catch up on that nobody covered in my absence, followed by me trying to catch up on it, and my manager pulling me away to do other projects for him when his other 2 staff members weren't doing anything. When my work was late, he was forever kicking at me that I couldn't manage my time properly, etc. Then, in May, he made a major mistake and pinned the blame on me for it. It caused issues between me and 2 colleagues I had to work closely with, and I was threatened with disciplinary action. Then I just got thinking to myself, without me running his department, he is nothing. Without me, he wouldn't have a job. Without me, he wouldn't be able to explain what was going on with his department to senior management, that I run his department for him on half of his salary, and that he takes all the glory and we get all of the grief. I had one last run-in with him over the mistake he'd made, and handed in my formal notice the following day. Those 4 weeks of serving my notice were great, just watching him slowly take over my responsibilities and struggling with them. Those responsibilities that he often told me, I don't even know what you do during the day. He also had to do the horrible jobs he used to pile on me. And on my final day in June, I told my fellow colleagues that I'll give him 3 months before he either quits or gets fired. Within the first few weeks, the department massively failed its monthly audit, which sparked the attention of company directors, who were sent in to investigate, as this had never happened before. Then, a month later, I was on holiday and had one of the senior managers ringing me and texting me, asking for passwords for systems, as my line manager had gone on holiday and hadn't organized anything. I ignored him because I didn't work there anymore and I was on holiday. Then the manager continued to make mistakes. He hadn't ordered essential items, which caused trouble for the site. He didn't have a clue about the job in question, as I originally was out to prove. Then, a month after that, he was suspended from his duties pending further investigation, as management finally realized he couldn't do his job in question. A month after that, management claimed that he quit with immediate effect. I think he was fired. But either way, my 3 months prediction was right, and he couldn't run that shift without me. It really is petty revenge quitting our job to prove a point, but it proved the point. The next story is called If It Doesn't Work. Back when I was in college, I worked for DPS. I've been working at this job for 6 months minimum wage when we got a new manager. I worked this job because they worked around my class schedule. When this new manager started, they gathered us all up to say the following: your schedules will no longer revolve around your classes. That is not how the real world works. If you have a problem with this, then you are free to quit. I proceeded to work the new schedule for a week and was late to my classes. Then I thought to myself, what's the point of a job if I can't get to my classes? So I wrote up a resignation letter and emailed it to my supervisor. He was chill and just said okay. Then the manager calls me and says I have to give her a minimum of 2 weeks notice and I can't quit. So I went to the office and handed her my letter of resignation. She then told me how unprofessional I am and how I can't use this place as a reference anymore. My response was simple. As I recall your exact words last week, if this schedule does not work, I should quit. She proceeded to yell at me and how dare I throw this back in her face. And then how she is going to report me to the university. Well, nothing happened. And I still get a kick out of how angry she was. The third story is called A Note for Her. About 35 years ago, I worked in a crappy warehouse job. There was this one co-worker, Mary, a very odd woman who really seemed to hate me. She kind of hated everyone actually, but I was closest in proximity. She would intentionally run into me, push boxes in my way to trip me, and just generally be nasty. The boss looked the other way, because he didn't know how to handle her. She worked in her own little space in the back, secluded away from everyone. When I quit my job and moved to a new city, I wrote a really nasty note to Mary. I then hid it in her area in a place where I knew she wouldn't find it for weeks or months. About a year goes by and I'm back in town visiting old friends, including some former co-workers from the same company. 3 of us go out for drinks, and during the conversation, the subject of Mary comes up. This one guy tells me that Mary found a nasty note hidden in her stuff and blamed it on him. He almost got fired, until he convinced the boss that he had nothing to do with it. I just sat there and played dumb, going, wow, that's crazy. Did they ever figure out who did it? The last story is called Getting Even. I work for an airline that flies all over Asia. On one Shanghai layover trip, I was paired with a first officer, known to have a chip on his shoulder. He'd actually joined the airline ahead of me, but for whatever reason was still languishing in the co-pilot seat, while most of his contemporaries had already progressed to captain. It wasn't that he was a bad pilot. His stick and rudder skills were actually quite good, but his attitude left much to be desired. He was known to grumble openly about still being in the co-pilot seat, blaming his failed upgrade on management pilots or instructors, whom he thought had it in for him. I could sense that he felt his seniority in the airline overrode the captain's authority on the flight deck. He was pushy and liked to make decisions without consultation, even if they weren't his to make. Other captains agree with this assessment. We were on a 2-night layover. The flight itself went well, and we checked into the hotel just past midnight. As we headed to our rooms, he asked if I had any plans. I said I wanted to visit a far corner of the city to see the sights, culminating in late lunch at a century-old restaurant known for its soup dumplings. He asked if he could join, and I said I would be happy to have him along. We agreed to meet for breakfast at 9 AM and leave the hotel by 10:30. 9 AM sharp, I was at the hotel cafe. He was nowhere to be found. As a courtesy, I waited 10 minutes before deciding to eat ahead. I was nearly done by the time he waltzed in at around 9:35. He acted as if nothing happened, and I thought nothing of it. Perhaps he was just tired from our late night flight and needed to catch a few more rings. After chatting briefly over breakfast, I decided to go back to my room to get ready. We agreed to meet at the lobby at 10:30. At 10:30 sharp, I was in the lobby, but he was nowhere to be found. He wouldn't show up for another 20 minutes. No apologies, no explanations. He just sauntered into the lobby, acting as if nothing happened. I again brushed it off and went on our way. The following day, I wanted to do some shopping. Again, he asked to tag along. Again, he was late for breakfast and the lobby meetup. At that point, the thought occurred to me that he thinks that showing up last makes him the most important person in the room. I'm a staunch believer of the maxim, don't get mad, get even. He needed to be put in his place. But how? Telling him off would be too easy and too crass. I wanted to be more subtle, but didn't know how, yet. By mid-afternoon, we were back at the hotel, resting for our flight home. The crew shuttle was scheduled to pick us up at 10:30 PM. At around 8 PM, the phone rang. It was the front desk manager, relaying a message from our ground handler. Due to a weather-related delay, our departure time would be moved back 2 hours. This meant our hotel pickup would also be moved back 2 hours. I thanked the manager and was about to put the phone down when he asked, "Would you like me to inform your colleague as well?" At that very moment, I knew this was it. I now had my payback, and it was going to be interest-bearing. "Oh, don't bother," I said. "I'll call him myself." And with that, I put the phone down, reset my alarm and went back to sleep. At 12:30 AM sharp, I walked into the hotel lobby. He was there. Had been for the past 2 hours. "Oh, didn't anyone tell you our flight was going to be delayed?" I asked with faint surprise. He shook his head glumly. "So sorry to hear that," I said, somewhat too sympathetically. "Anyway, shall we go? Shuttle's here." I turned towards the door and quickly walked away. It was all I could do to hide that diabolical grin. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.